Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Openly Woke Network podcast number 2. My name is Spencer. I'm joined, as always, by Carrington.
What's up, everybody?
And today we're talking about a bunch of tech stuff. And we're going to start off first and foremost with my beer of choice today. And today it is a IPA from Phase 3 Brewing. It's called Cream or Creme. It's a double dry hop Citra and Mosaic and Eldorado IPA with oats and milk sugar, and it is delicious. So,
And in my red cup, I've got my Rockstar on Ice as always, just waiting for our sponsorship. Thank you.
Yeah, I've known Carrington for close to a decade now, and ever since I've known him, he's always walking around with a red Solo cup, and there's always Rockstar. No liquor, nothing, just
Right.
Rockstar and ice, always.
Yes. That's my go-to.
Yeah, it's not bad. I was on an energy drink kick a while ago, but yeah, I guess some people just love the flavor, man.
Yeah,
So
you
anyway,
got to transition to the Four Loko kick now.
yeah, just add some vodka, and there you go. You got the energy drink, you got the alcohol, you're good.
Good.
All right, so diving right on in, we're going to talk today about first and foremost the Huawei ban. So Carrington and I both think the Huawei ban is BS, and yeah, I'll let Carrington take it away.
Yeah, so the Huawei ban is bullshit. I've worked in the cell phone industry for about 5 years, but I've grown up in it my entire life. And just based on the way that the networks operate in this country, it's bullshit when you look at the network side. Now, there is a little more credence to the reason they would ban the actual network hardware. The infrastructure itself supports a lot of government phones. They have a lot of isolated bands through the different carriers, like AT&T has FirstNet. I think a lot of the government contracts are on Verizon with specific megahertz frequencies or gigahertz channels now. So there is some credibility to why you would ban their network infrastructure. But the actual device and the hardware for the consumer side ban, that's just a political bullshit ban, because everything hardware-wise is made in that country already, and none of the other companies in this country follow those rules. Isn't, for instance, Apple's iCloud based in China?
They do have some iCloud servers in China. They're not based there per se, but they do have iCloud servers in China. Now, on the heels of that, one thing to think about, and guys, we're showing CNN here. We could show some Tech Journal if that'd give us some more information. But the point is, this is hit like mainstream news, and Apple's got some iCloud servers over there for sure. What they say, or what they said when they were building those, so does Google. We're not trying to be biased. Is that's only for people over there in China. So those iCloud servers in China are only for Chinese people. The problem is, yeah, that's what I was going to say. The problem is, it's really tough to prove. It's really difficult to prove that when you upload something in the cloud, it's not going to that Chinese server. And what Carrington was getting at is, if you have Huawei is a Chinese-based company, and the argument for the ban basically boils down to, hey, it's a communist country, and the government has laws in place where they have to be able to see everything that you do. So the Chinese government can look at everything Huawei does. So like network equipment, like he was mentioning, the Chinese government can intercept those communications, or Huawei could just have them stored to a server, and the government can go access them whenever they want to. However, those same rules apply if you're a company that operates in China. The law that keeps being cited as far as the Huawei ban goes, which means Google, who has servers over there, and Apple, who has servers over there, but they're US-based companies, so they're free of criticism as far as the government's concerned. And yeah, it gets really dicey really quick. Apple in particular, their encryption is not great, to put it politely. And yeah, if your stuff's being stored on an iCloud server over there, which again, when you upload to iCloud, it doesn't say what server it's going to. So it's really, really difficult to say that it is or that it isn't definitively. The Chinese government could have that. They could have your pictures. They could have, like Jennifer Lawrence or whoever the celebrities are that had like naked pics on their phone. Like they could have access to all that stuff in theory. So yeah, it's just, it doesn't make sense.
With the security side, like you and you have ProtonMail, and I think we're gonna kind of show example of kind of encrypted email and give examples of that, maybe even graphene if you want to go over that. But the whole basis of the security is kind of flawed for the way most people think about it, because like you and I have talked about for almost 10 years now, Google literally let any generic app they put on the Play Store access every critical and vital function on your phone, every piece of data. So you can have a little kid swiping game that has hijacked your camera, your audio, your text messages, your emails, all your contacts, every number that's been in your phone book and your SIM card, read through the contents of your SD card and your internal hard drive. And there's no justification to it, and there's no oversight to it. So at what point does that gray line become so definite they ban the phone I carry now, like the email I got from AT&T?
Yeah, so the Apple in their defense, or the iPhone in their defense, has been better at that. Every app that gets uploaded to the App Store, for those that don't know, Apple's App Store, everything in there has been reviewed by Apple. Now, of course, they still make mistakes, but that is at least some level of review. The Play Store, I could build an app tomorrow and upload it to the Play Store and it'd be accepted without review. Now, what Google does is when there's an issue or the app is malicious, they go in and then they remove the app. But as far as it's gotten better recently, but as far as just you requesting whatever permission you want to, it's been very, I don't know the right word for it. Google just hasn't cared. It's been a very different approach from Apple's approach. Compare that to F-Droid, which we talked about a little bit in the last episode. That's all open source, but they require that since it's open source, they be able to review every single line of your code. Just, you know, what Google does has some benefits, but also some consequences. So it's just like, oh, man, this is weird. Now, I think what we both agree on is the issue is not so much the Huawei ban. You know, we're not trying to be fanboys of Huawei, even though we both do like their devices a lot. And the Mate 20X, we agree, is one of the greatest phones that's ever been created. It's the inconsistency. It's that you would ban Huawei, but let Google and Apple continue to operate in China, or anybody else for that matter, continue to operate in China under the same laws that are imposed on Huawei, just because of a theory that they're, you know, it's just inconsistent. If you really cared about this, if the government really cared about this, Trump, whoever you want to blame it on, this would be across the board. You can't operate in China, sort of a thing. But that's not what we're seeing. It's just, you know, Huawei bad.
Right, and it doesn't even make sense in consistency, even with the standard they're trying to set with the Chinese companies, because there is Xiaomi, Vivo, Oppo, OnePlus. You know, most of those are under one umbrella, but why are they completely under the radar? I mean, OnePlus and Oppo are still being sold through carriers.
Yeah, that's true.
Like
OnePlus
how does that make sense?
Well, let's pull this up really quick for people that don't know. We'll look at OnePlus on Wikipedia, because I remember reading this a while ago. OnePlus parent company. Now, the parent company of OnePlus is a conglomerate, which means they're a company that owns a bunch of other companies. There we go. BBK Electronics. Now, BBK Electronics, as you can see over here on the right side, they're a private company based in China, and they own a bunch of companies. So OnePlus, Realme, that's a branch of OnePlus. They're like a cheaper version. So for those of you that know Xiaomi and Poco, Realme is like OnePlus's Poco phone. Oppo, which is, they make some very high-end devices. They're awesome. I really like Oppo. Vivo, which you probably haven't heard of here in the States, but they're really big overseas. They also make some really good phones, really interesting phones too, like a lot of concept style phones. They made a phone about a year ago that had a screen on the front and the back. So they just kind of, throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, which I like.
They're almost like a concept tech branch of the other divisions. They kind of develop the new kit and then they filter it down.
So, I mean, years before Samsung or Apple ever introduces anything, Vivo is going to have done a phone on it. Oppo potentially would have. IQOO will probably have done a phone on it. Xiaomi probably have done something with that tech. Definitely. So these are companies that are like, hey, this new tech's out. Let's just throw this at the wall, see what happens. So anyway, point of that being BBK Electronics, China-based company, OnePlus, Vivo, Oppo, Realme, and then this brand, IQOO, nobody's probably heard of, but they're out there too. And OnePlus, if you go to oneplus.com like we did in the last video, you can still buy OnePlus phones directly from there. You can buy a OnePlus that works on Verizon. Like it doesn't make sense. Huawei's networking equipment, like Carrington alluded to, if you want to ban that, it's like, okay, you have some grounds to do that. Banning the phone itself that I choose to buy,
Right.
you're not being consistent. You're just not. Like, you have to ban everyone. And ZTE was banned too a couple of years ago, but their high-end phones never made it to the States, so it wasn't like it wasn't a big deal. But yeah, OnePlus is a Chinese-based company, so there you go.
And then if we go, a step back and we look at, for instance, the Snapdragon, right? That every component of that chip is built in factories in like 2 cities in China. But that's okay, and that gets a pass. But the killin hardware somehow is too evil and dangerous. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. There's no consistency to any of the rules or regulations in the way they're going about it. And I get, even if they wanted to hardball China, then at least put a hard wall up and say no Xiaomi, no OnePlus, no Oppo, no BBK, no Huawei. China, or Apple, you're not operating China. Google, you're not to, go over there and build specific firewall branches of your network. I mean, at what point does it make any sense? I mean, Google has gone over there and helped them build the facial recognition system that is basically like crushed Hong Kong.
Yeah. So in that same vein, like you just said, Snapdragon is created or made in China. The last episode we alluded to, and I don't have a link pulled up for it right now, the only company that makes wafers, which all those chips are based on. So, I mean, every chip, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, Snapdragon, the Kirin from Huawei, the Exynos from Samsung, like Apple's chips, everything is made from this one company, from their wafers. They're based in China. So this headline, my dad actually sent me earlier today. This is just some of the information that's out there. He's not nearly as tech savvy as I am, for example. It just doesn't make sense. Huawei to stop making flagship chipsets as U.S. pressure bites, Chinese media says. Now, if Huawei was doing this, one of the ways that would make sense is if Huawei said, hey, we're going to put the Snapdragon in our phones, because the Snapdragon 855, 55 plus, 65, 65 plus, they're lower end chips. You get the idea. They just crush everything. They crush the Kirin, they crush the Exynos. Apple's not a fair comparison because those are different OSs running on the phones, but you get the chips are just phenomenal. The advantage Huawei has, and Samsung to some extent with the Exynos, but it's much more apparent with Huawei, is they control the hardware, they control the software. So the chips are just, they're not going to compete with the Snapdragon on speed, like we mentioned in the last video, in the last podcast.
They don't necessarily need to in the same way.
They don't. They're so smooth. The way that, I mean, Huawei's controlling everything there. That makes sense.
Right.
Now, the smoothness they're going to lose by if they were to switch away from, for instance, their chips to the Snapdragon, it's probably not a big deal. Like, Snapdragon's so freaking powerful, it's probably not a big deal. Now, cost-wise, I don't know the difference. They save billions from R&D, but, if they spend a lot of money with Snapdragon, that part I don't know. Just, this doesn't make sense that the U.S. pressure, because the Kirin chipset, if you guys want to look at K-R-I-N, or K-I-R-I-N, something like that.
Yeah.
Kirin.
K-I-R-I-N.
Oh, yeah, right there in front of me. K-I-R-I-N. Those chipsets, if you want to look them up, they're only in Huawei phones. So the U.S. pressure makes absolutely no sense because they're only in Huawei phones, which the U.S. wants to ban anyway. And the U.S. wants to ban everything Huawei anyway. So just, that's what I told my dad. I was like, this just doesn't pass the sniff test. Why would they do that? Unless the Snapdragon is just more powerful. But because of U.S. pressure, it just doesn't make sense. So,
well, because I have a double-edged theory to it that I've been developing, and I don't think it's necessarily the interface of the CPU or the GPU that's necessarily specific to why it would be so expensive to switch to Snapdragon. It's the integrated modem and the bands that Huawei have developed. It would cost a fortune to try to integrate that into the Snapdragon, because they basically have every band, not only in China, but almost across the world, where the Snapdragon modems are a lot more regional specific. And I have a feeling that that has as much to do with them trying to ban the chips as the smart devices that they know, like the killin is going into their new TVs, for instance, and they're building Harmony OS. So I think Trump and the administration's like method of thinking is, let's try to cut them off at both knees, not just the network side, but the critical hardware side that basically keeps their business afloat. So I don't really get why they're specifically targeting them, is what I question, because like I've told you this story a bunch of times, but a couple of years ago, my old boss here in Southern California, for about 20 years, he was a Verizon network engineer and construction, and he actually was a technical engineer and built the actual switches, they're called, and they're essentially mainframes. They're hubs where all of the cell sites route to this central server, and the switch then essentially reroute specific data to another central hub where like information is stored on hard drives and things like that. And these switches basically they route and log information. So every piece of data that goes through there, it's kind of like a hard drive and a router at the same time. What's interesting is my old boss told me at every single switch, specifically with Verizon at the time, there was a CIA black room that had a duplicate hybrid cable, which is a bunch of fiber optic cables with power in a single strand. They have a duplicate literally copying every single piece of information that ever crossed the Verizon network. And this was since the mid 90s, when they were even introducing fiber optics to the system. So it's like, I just find it ironic that they're like pointing and targeting Huawei instead of China as a whole, while, I mean, Snowden called it out that we do this on a grand scale here, but I mean, literally, they have every piece of data that's ever crossed any of the carriers since back when it was still hardwired analog lines. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the networking piece, like you mentioned, makes sense. The phone that I am choosing to purchase doesn't, because I can choose to make a Huawei account. I can choose to sign into Google services or not. You know, I'm choosing which data is going where. And if I'm not using the Huawei app, so we think, yeah, fair.
And that's a, with Google, that's a whole side that I talked about earlier, is like, how much of the information before the transmission occurs can Google or Apple sniff out from your phone just through all the ping checks it does constantly? What information can they get?
To finish this out, and we'll circle back to, like we were talking about Apple and encryption. This will all tie together. We'll talk about ProtonMail here in a second. But jumping over to the TikTok ban and something that we talked about before starting recording is, when I get the Pixel 4a, once Graphene OS is stable for it, that's what I'm going to install, period. I'm going to completely de-Google my phone. Now, what I've already done on my existing phone, which again is the LG V60 review coming out real soon for it, is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like any social media app, I deleted the app from my phone. What I did instead is I went to that version in the browser and just added that to my home screen. So I'm basically using the apps in my browser. Not basically, that's what's happening. You're using the app in your browser. And it doesn't work as well. Like, the scrolling's pretty smooth. Like, everything looks really good. The app itself is not quite as responsive if you're trying to play a video or something like that from Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. It's not nearly as good. But then all the permissions from those apps, you don't have to worry about it anymore. You just worry about the permissions from your browser, which are typically, not always, but typically much less intrusive. So your browser is asking for way less information than these apps are. And I, for example, trust the Brave browser, which I use mostly, and Firefox much more than I trust Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So that's something practical you can do even on iOS, because that's the thing. Graphene OS, you can't install on iOS. If you're like, hey, I like iPhones, but I'm kind of up a creek here because I can't install this external or third-party software, whatever you want to call it. That's something practical you can do. Uninstall those apps or any app that you're concerned about, and then just go to the web browser, hit the settings, and do add to home screen. You can add that specific app to your home screen, and you just use that as your Twitter app, Instagram app, whatever.
That's smart, man. Back yourself away out of it.
Yeah.
Too toxic.
Slow and steady. And I'll probably end up doing that with Amazon too. I haven't yet, but Amazon's probably another app I'll do that with because they grab a ton of data and, you
Right.
know, they've already got a bunch of data on you. But,
No, it's I would think this is a great challenge because a lot of people probably don't know a whole lot about this, but I would just tell people to go in and look at the permissions. You can even open the
yeah.
Play Store and actually look at the permissions that any app that you have, especially Google apps, but if there is a function or piece of data that's on your phone, they're telling you blatantly to use this app, we're taking it.
And something that we mentioned last time, we'll do this. Let me see if I can find this guy's channel. There we go. Rob Braxman and also Chris Titus Tech. Those two channels talk a lot about privacy. The hated one, which we're going to get to here in a minute, he talks a lot about privacy as well. But these people, they're just huge on privacy. And Rob Braxman specifically talks about why he left iOS, why he uses like de-Googled Android phones now. And
Yeah.
even if you don't want to do that, you're not techie, you don't want to worry about installing an additional software, you love your iPhone, you like FaceTime, whatever the case may be, there's still practical things you can do to take back your data. And the social media thing, like I said, with even Amazon, that's one of them. Like it's a practical thing because we were talking before this started. Carrington and I have known each other for almost a decade. And if you think back a decade ago, that's when the iPhone was like first becoming a thing. That's when the Note, the Samsung Note at 5.5 inches, which is laughable now. I mean, it might have been smaller. It might have been like 5.3,
I think it was like 5.1 or 2. Yeah, 5.2.
It was just too big. You know, it's too big to carry around, which now, you know, the Mate 20X is 7.2, and it's the phone that both of us love. It's just, you know,
and even the new popular phones, like the new Note's going to be 6.9 inches, and that's like
6.7, 6.9, yeah.
Yeah, mainstream phone. It is funny to see how it's changed.
As we'll get to here in a sec, hopefully, these Motorolas, these are all 6.5. So $350, $400 phones, and they're 6.5. So, I mean, it's kind of funny to think back to that time. But, you know, it's just stuff we didn't even consider. So,
well, dude, remember when we first met, there weren't even permissions shown. It wasn't only after a couple of years that we really got into Android, and that's what got us building and rooting and me creating ROMs and stuff. Was a lot of it was for improvements that we knew that the device had, but that Google would refuse to do for incremental updates. But the other one was security. There was a lot of, remember there was a couple of years where I was going in and removing all the actual Google apps ties to the YouTube and to Gmail, and then they figured out a way with the actual Android base firmware to stop the function if you did that. But I mean, we always tried to find workarounds for years, but you know, Google even removed the ROM or root functionality for the most part, so they could stop you from doing that, so they could keep pulling your data. That's essentially what broke that community.
Right. We're finally at a place where for some phones, like I said last video, you know, ironically the Google Pixel, where you can download ROMs that are completely de-Googled and you can, you know, live completely de-Googled. So to tie that back into what we were just talking about, you know, de-Googling and Apple, like we talked about, the servers in China and the data being encrypted, you know, encrypted. This is one of the primary ways I de-Googled. I downloaded ProtonMail on my phone and I migrated away from my Gmail. So if you think about it, like if your Amazon is tied to your Gmail, not only does Amazon have information on everything you've ever purchased, so does Google. Now add that to Google Maps and, you know, whatever the hell else, Google's got all kinds of information on you. And tying that, you know, like we said, meeting 10 years ago, this stuff wasn't really a thing. These phones weren't really a thing. They weren't an integral part of our life like they are right now. So it's
I don't
not
even
so
think
much
Google Maps had the ability to track your previous location, like in a recent memory at that point still.
Yeah, it probably didn't. But it's one of those things, like it's not even a conversation of I don't have anything to hide, as it is I don't know how they're going to use this information in the future. And maybe you want to assume the best in these companies, which I certainly wouldn't after they've been caught doing all kinds of, you know, all kinds of crap. Like 2016 election cycle, for instance, doesn't matter who you liked and voted for, like the way that they were skewing information towards Hillary positive and Trump negative. Like, this is a private company, I guess, a
Right.
publicly traded company, but not a government entity
Right.
doing this stuff. Like, you don't know how this information is going to be used. That's something that I never thought would happen, and it did. And the data since then is they swung several million votes to Hillary based on Google searches alone. So you just don't know.
Well, and to kind of tie this back with the reason we started out with the Huawei ban is because people have this weird split mindset of, well, I don't need to worry about my security, and my data is not that important, so they don't consider what you're about to show them with things like Proton. But at the same time, we'll also go like, my data is so important, God forbid the Chinese government get a hold of it. And you're like, wait, which one is it? Like, you either
one.
don't care or you do care, but you can't have both.
Right. So, and with Apple, like we mentioned, we've ripped on Apple security a couple of times, and anybody that tells you they care about your privacy, and Apple's made it like a what's the word? Not SJW thing, but like grandstanding on privacy. They've made entire ad campaigns on this. They're grandstanding on it. Here's how you know somebody cares about privacy. And now I'm gonna black out my email address so you guys don't actually see my email address. But on ProtonMail.com, we click login. I've got LastPass, not sponsored by them, but get a password manager. LastPass is awesome, works on iOS and Android. So we go to user login, LastPass auto-populates it. It's my username, my password. Let's click login. What happens? I need a decryption key. Now, LastPass auto-populates my actual password, but that's not my decryption key. So to get into my mailbox, I have to type in a decryption key. The only person that knows that key is me. ProtonMail does not know what that decryption key is, neither does anybody else. And that's something that I have to physically type in every time because LastPass doesn't even know my decryption key.
Right.
Now,
and explain to people why that's so crucial.
So it's good and it's bad. And you can go here to ProtonMail.com. They did a TED Talk. I love ProtonMail, top-rated app on the Android or Google Play Store. So they're awesome. But the reason the decryption key is so important, let's give you an example practically. If you hack my email, and so Carrington, for example, he knows my username, my password, and let's go. I got Spencer's email. The issue is he can't decrypt my mailbox. So even if he goes to a recovery process with ProtonMail, he's just going to see a bunch of crap, a bunch of scrambled letters and stuff. So my ex, actually, I got her to switch over to ProtonMail and from her Gmail, again, to try to de-Google her because, she understood what I was saying. It's kind of a big deal. You don't know how the data is going to be used. And she forgot her decryption key at one point. And, went through the process with ProtonMail, got everything reset. But once she got into her inbox, she was pissed. She couldn't read anything, was actually visibly upset, complaining to me, talking about how stupid it was and da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, look, this sucks right now because you forgot your decryption key. But this is the reason you use ProtonMail, because if somebody hacks your stuff, they can't read anything. It's all encrypted. So it's encrypted on the front end. It's encrypted once on the front end, right? And then it's encrypted also where you need your decryption key. It is end-to-end encrypted for real. A company that actually cares about your privacy, the first thing they do is they give you the encryption key and they don't know it. So that's why it was annoying for her, but it was also this is the point. This is a good thing. It sucks right now, but this is good. Think about if somebody hacked your email, they can't see anything. And we had just bought a house too. It's nobody can get in there, see some particularly sensitive information or potentially sensitive information. So it's kind of a big deal. And Apple grandstands on privacy, but they don't give you the decryption key. They know it. They have it. It's on their server. The decryption key is stored on a server. And that's why most people that get hacked on Apple devices is through iCloud. Just, do they really care? No. It's marketing, and Apple's marketing has always been top notch.
And that's the difference, really, why I wanted you. That's a great explanation of what this is, because there is kind of two methods of thought, if you will, for encryption. And one is kind of end to end, if you will. You think of it as soon as you go to transmit from point A to point B, It encrypts here, and then it decrypts at the other end, and you see the message, whatever it is, the email. Proton is unique in the fact that it's encrypted your mailbox and the messages going in and coming out. So it gives you an actual security rather than some sort of phony sense of security that, you know, basically your message is just getting scrambled in transmission, which the network essentially does that anyway, as it bursts out the different data packets across different switches and stuff. People don't realize that it's not like your whole message is coming from, you know, one link down the chain. And so that's a really cool feature, because like I've bitched about this for years with like Google and Apple, excuse me, is that anytime you're doing anything on your phone, even if you're writing a draft email that's not being sent, that is completely unencrypted with no sense of security to it other than your password protection, which if somebody can get in the back door, which Apple and Google not only get in the back door of your device, but they're constantly checking everything, then as you were typing, they could essentially be key logging stroke for stroke what you're typing. I mean, there's no way that you can hide from Apple or Google, and that's why it's so scary that they're allowed to run roughshod in China with their servers, which are like the most important aspect of the security, not the device itself.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, in a similar vein, not all encryption is created equal. This is a rabbit hole you can go down. I think it's fun. People that, you know, aren't super techy probably think it's annoying. You go down this trail, and not all encryption is created equal. And I actually pulled this up here. If you just, I mean, literally, I searched for ProtonMail TED Talk. And here you go. It's from, you know, 2015. It's about the time I signed up for ProtonMail, so I've been using it for a while. And they go over the different types of encryption, what makes their email different. As you see right here on their page, it's based in Switzerland. So even if there's some sort of the government, for whatever reason, the U.S. government needs to seize your email, ProtonMail is not required to give them that information because they're not a U.S. company. They're not based in the U.S. So that's also pretty huge. On the same wavelength, I guess, trying to keep all this tied together. This guy on YouTube, the hated one, he makes a lot of videos on different privacy and things like that. So we just talked about, you know, Trump and TikTok, why that TikTok ban doesn't really make sense, which I guess we'll dive back into here in a second. And he's got a video here on TikTok. He's got videos on ProtonMail. He's got a lot of videos on privacy and how to protect yourself. He's got videos on Graphene OS, which we talked about last video. He's got videos on F-Droid, which we talked about last video. Like, this guy just wants to help you keep your data out of nefarious hands, essentially. And it's a channel, again, no affiliation, not sponsored at all, but I'd recommend checking his stuff out because he's pretty great. He also has videos referencing Edward Snowden, like Harrington just talked about, and the backdoors they have into your Android and iPhone. So back to the TikTok
Great
stuff.
Transition to the TikTok, because this one makes even less sense, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, in the mainstream media, this is what's tough for me. I'm no fan of Trump, but the mainstream media and a lot of my friends are so anti-Trump, I get stuck defending him a lot. And it's frustrating.
I know
because I'm like, I don't like this guy, and you guys are making me defend him. That's how far to the other side you are. You're making me step up and defend this guy. Why are you doing this?
Dude, that Overton window has just gone like a mile to the left.
Insane.
It's crazy.
Insane, man. But
you and I have always been pretty down the middle and almost apolitical with most things, more just common sense. And
we're both
gotten crazy.
For full transparency for this and whatever other politic things come up, we're both probably considered libertarians. I think Carrington's probably more liberal than I am, but we're both basically in the mindset of, you know, Constitution matters, First Amendment, Second Amendment, etc.
Leave us the fuck alone.
Yeah, leave me alone. As long as I'm not hurting anybody, as long as you're not hurting anybody, I don't care. And also low taxes, because those California taxes are killing you.
It's insane.
Yeah, so Trump banning TikTok, I don't think is constitutional. I think Carrington would agree. The thing is that you're not going to hear in the mainstream media. So CNN, or there's a couple of podcasts I listen to, and they're not even covering it. Like we just talked about with permissions, The permissions that TikTok requires are insane. And they do a lot of nefarious stuff with that data. It's not just like some people have tried to downplay it, you know, to rip on Trump is, hey, he's, you know, China's going to see some girl, some, you know, high school girl and her friends dancing to some, you know, rap song. It's like, no, it's not accurate. That's not it. You're forgoing and kind of downplaying all the permissions that they're looking into on your phone. You're downplaying all the information that they've gotten on your phone. And referencing back to the hated one, this video right here, it's 13 minutes long. Highly recommend you listen to it if you're interested at all in TikTok. The data that they're grabbing and sending to China is kind of mind-boggling. Everything they're grabbing off of your phone and sending that way, which here's where the issue comes in. The Patriot Act. For those of you that don't know, when September 11th, 2001 happened, shortly thereafter, George Bush enacted the Patriot Act, and it was voted on and passed unanimously. What that did to catch terrorists is it let the U.S. government basically spy on everything that you were doing on any connection, your phone, your computer, whatever. The U.S. government can basically see it, specifically phones, to try and, you know, track down terrorists. Now, Barack Obama, terrorist. Barack Obama said that he was going to repeal the Patriot Act when he was campaigning. While he was in office, it came time to renew the Patriot Act, and he voted to renew it. He passed it. So he renewed the Patriot Act. Donald Trump.
And strengthened it.
Yeah, strengthened it too. Donald Trump said, hey, this is not constitutional. I'm going to repeal the Patriot Act. And guess what? He didn't. He renewed it. So the U.S. government is already grabbing all this information from you. I mean, at least in theory, because neither of us can prove it objectively. But this is something that's really easy to Google if you're interested in, and Edward Snowden talks about too. All the data that they're worried about TikTok grabbing and more, the U.S. government's grabbing. If you jump over to the hated one, all the data that he goes over from people reverse engineering the app that TikTok is grabbing, so is Facebook, so is Instagram, so is Twitter, so is the U.S. government. So it's just a China-based company and China bad, or you know, if you don't like Trump, Orange Man bad for trying to ban this app, which I actually agree with here.
And this is what's funny is neither one of us are pro-China with the situation. Like, we want to get
we both love Huawei and Xiaomi,
everything back.
Yeah.
But we want to get businesses back and get the U.S. booming. But at the same time, we love Xiaomi and Huawei products and some of the stuff that they do. But there's just no consistency, and that is the biggest frustration. Is like, Apple hasn't paid, what is it like now, $300 billion in U.S. taxes because they're an Irish-based company. Like, fuck them. That's almost worse than them just stealing the data. You know, that's like a percent of our budget that they owe that we don't. I mean, it's just absurd. If we didn't pay $1,000, we'd be in jail. That's why I can't stand that.
That's more of a, neither of us has a desire to work in the government, but you know, it's a little sidebar. I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole and focus on, you know, politics. I want to stay tech focused.
Right.
But New York saying people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, the rich don't pay their fair share. Well, COVID happened. They shut all the businesses down, and the rich moved to Florida and Texas. Right. So now you have their governor coming out saying, hey, the top 1% in New York pay 50% of the state taxes. Come back, and literally begging them to come back. It's like, well, wait, I thought they didn't pay their fair share, and they cover the rich. The top 1% pay 50% of them taxes for the state. That's not, something's not adding up here. Like it's one of those things where so corporations can have these loopholes that don't apply to people. How about you lower the tax rates, but also close the loopholes? Because you can do both things, and if you do that, the money you're going to bring in the government's probably going to be the same. You're just lowering the tax rate from this. I want to grandstand, like we just talked about with Apple and privacy. A lot of Democrats, not all of them, but a lot of them are like, hey, I want to grandstand and raise taxes on corporations, like the Bernie Sanders types, for example.
Right.
But leaving those loopholes there. So it's like, you're raising taxes in theory, but not in actuality. Right. Versus like, hey, let's take this from 30% down to like 10%, but we're closing these loopholes. So corporations, you're paying 10%, individuals, you're paying 10%, or whatever the case may be. I think you're paying what? You're paying 30% federal plus 13% state or something crazy like that in California.
No, I think it's like 24 and then 13. So it's like 30. I think total it's somehow around 33, 34, whatever the breakdown is from what I remember of my taxes.
No, it's just,
It's
it's
more than a
nuts.
third. It's a
It's
little more
nuts.
than 1/3, which is like ridiculous.
Yeah. So again, not to get down that loophole, but yeah, Apple avoiding all this stuff, and they're a U.S. company, so they're beyond. They're our Lord and Savior. We can't
Yeah, they're
criticize
somehow
them.
beyond reproach, but
Yeah.
that's just what, if we could
I
get the
guess Samsung kind of is
consistency.
too. Even though they're based in South Korea, they're our ally. So Samsung's not subject to being scrutinized either. But
Well, for a long time, I honestly thought that because Samsung have a government contract and they're the most popular Android brand, non-Apple brand, I actually thought that for a while the Huawei stuff was all to basically knock them down a peg because they were easily going to be the number one, not only
yeah, I remember
network
that. Yeah.
manufacturer, they were going to be easily the number one hardware manufacturer in sales. So they were going to take away the market share because their phones are just that much better than pretty
I mean,
much all the other ones.
that's a good closing note on Huawei. For those that don't know, if you look at globally, Apple's huge in the US. They're not very big outside of the US. You've got some markets like China. China loves Apple phones, ironically, maybe. But you had Samsung at number 1 globally as far as smartphone manufacturers, Apple at number 2, and Huawei at number 3. Number 4, I think, is Xiaomi. Number 5, I think, is like Oppo or OnePlus. It's another Chinese brand. So you've got 3 Chinese brands in the top 5 globally, and then 1
Right.
South Korea, 1 US. Huawei dethroned Apple as number 2, and this was about a year ago when all this stuff started breaking. So you had Samsung and Huawei, then Apple, and Huawei was just, their growth was just exponential. They were closing on Samsung fast, and that's when all this stuff started breaking. Which
Right.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I kind of forgot that. That's when all this stuff started breaking and people started getting mad at Huawei. It's like, well,
Right.
okay, about lobbyists, obviously, in the US and stuff. It's like that Samsung probably has
Not only
lobbyists here. Like this
not
just
only
doesn't smell
that,
right.
but remember, not only that, but they were the first ones to invent and deploy 5G true
Yep.
millimeter wave gig plus speeds that their
True
phones,
5G.
that's all over China and a lot of parts of Asia, and that we're not even deploying here yet in any kind of real scale.
Right.
So they're like years ahead of us in technology in terms of the wireless industry, and that's why I just found it kind of ironic. I'm like, so this isn't a China ban. This is a one company that's beating the shit out of every other company in terms of technological innovation and sales.
Yeah.
What's that? I don't know. It's kind of odd.
Yeah, the timing was very suspicious to say the least.
Right.
So people like, so my parents are very pro-Trump, my dad especially, and people like that, lots of, Fox News, not trying to rant on one website or target one website, but talking about China stealing from us. It's like, okay, well, maybe they did at some point. Like, I mean, you got knockoff AirPods you can buy. They're not as good, but they look the same and they got some of the same tech.
Yeah.
At the same time, the first company to roll out a end-screen fingerprint sensor, Chinese. I think it was Huawei. It might have been Oppo, but I think it was Huawei.
I think it was
End-screen fingerprint
Xiaomi.
sensor.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it might have
might have
been
been.
Huawei with the Mate. The Mate 20 Pro may have been the one that had it.
Xiaomi might have. That's right. I don't think Oppo would have. It might have been Xiaomi. Xiaomi's number 4 on that list of top 5, by the way.
It was either Xiaomi or Huawei, and folding screen, same thing.
Folding screens, camera tech, just all kinds of. If you guys look at the top rated cameras on dxomark.com on phones, they're all the number 1 is always Huawei.
The physical fingerprint reader, they were the first with the Mate 7 or 8, like 2 years before anyone else had one.
Just so, I mean, maybe they stole some tech in the past, maybe, but right now the companies innovating are all Chinese. Xiaomi and Oppo and Vivo, and which are the same parent company, remember, and then Huawei. Those companies are the ones that are innovating overseas. So it's like, well, no, Apple still doesn't have end-screen fingerprint sensors, 4 years later?
Right.
Samsung started doing them, and they're not very good. Samsung's cameras are nowhere near the quality that Huawei are, and I think like Xiaomi cameras better than Samsung, to be honest. I mean, Samsung's barely in my top 5, maybe.
Yeah.
Like you got, Probably like Apple's in there. Apple's cameras are great for as much as we're ripping
They're
on
good. Yeah.
them. And no order, Apple, Huawei, Xiaomi. You got to put Google in there. Their post-processing is awesome.
Yeah.
You got to put Google in there.
Right.
And then maybe Samsung number 5.
Probably.
So,
yeah.
just, yeah, anyway, they're not, the timing just seems very suspicious, to say the least. So that's one of the reasons, that's one of the things that pissed us off is the timing as Huawei's kind of hitting their stride. Just, oh, hey,
Right.
now that you're big enough for us to pay attention to you, this is
Right.
an issue. Just, I
mean,
think
they've
there's some
been
lobbyists
copying.
involved, but
They've been copying cars and stuff for years, and I get the copyright's fucked up because of the
they
weird.
copy each other. Apple and Samsung copy each other.
Dude, but all Apple and Samsung do is copy Huawei and Xiaomi. Whatever they do, like a year later, the other guys come out with, and then they're like, "We invented this first." You're like, "What?"
Yeah. So
odd.
that's a good transition. So the Note 20 came out right after we recorded our last podcast, and it's laughable.
Disappointing. Just disappointing, dude.
So
But the
I've had it
price.
pulled up here for a minute. So if we do no trade-in, so brand new, in the States, because they on the presentation said, oh yeah, the Note 20 starts at $800, which is still overpriced. But in the States, which is where we are, $999 for the Note 20. $999 doesn't matter the carrier. $999. Note 20 Ultra starts at $1299. If you want the 512, because there's no in between, it's 128 to 512, $1499 or $1449. Sorry, that's a car. You can buy a car for that much money. Just
Dude, I could have bought 2 of my laptop for that. I mean, my laptop was cheaper than the base Note 9.
well, and something important to keep in mind: there's no 512 option with the Note 20 non-Ultra, and there's no SD card slot. So remember last video we showed you guys the Pixel 4a that has 128 gigs of storage and 6 gigs of RAM for $350. Yeah, this is why we said there's no reason to buy a more expensive phone. If you want to go for the OnePlus Nord for $500, do it. Because it's probably a great phone. I haven't used it personally, but
beautiful.
I love OnePlus. Looks great.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
This is just... Dude, and what's funny is, I guess we should put the caveat out there. We were probably 2 of the biggest Galaxy Note fans when they first launched Note 1 through 4, to the point we developed software and ROMs and custom-built applications and themes because we loved these devices. And now they're just this generic knockoff phone of this one that they just put out 6 months before and 6 months before that.
Well, so Carrington had the Note 1. I was on Verizon, so I couldn't buy the Note 1 even though I wanted it. But the Note 2 we both had, and the Note 1 was like 5.1, 5.2 inches was, huge back in the day.
Yeah.
The Note 2 is 5.5, and the Note 2 is still one of my favorite phones today, as far as, phones that came out during when they did.
Agreed.
And then, so we had Carrington had the Note 1, both had the Note 2, Note 3, Note 4. And I was a salesman at Sprint at the time, so I was the company delegate, the store delegate or whatever for the Note 5, and that's when stuff just started going downhill. The Note 4 is the last Note that I actually purchased because they used to have pretty big screens, which they still do. They weren't curved. I like my screens like the Earth, flat. And then they had a plastic back, like a faux leather back. You could take the back off. You could pop in an SD card. You could take the battery out and replace it if you needed to. The thing that most people don't realize is when you drop the phone, when the back pops off, you drop the phone, and to help absorb the impact, the phone breaks into a couple pieces. So you got the let's say you drop it on the corner of the phone, right? Take the phone, drop it on the corner. All that pressure is going to hit the back panel and push that panel off of the phone. Might push the battery out too. But you pick the phone up, it's plastic around the edges, the edge will look kind of rough, but you can just, it's plastic. It'll smooth out after a couple of days. Put the battery back in, back on, you're good to go.
Yep.
Now with these glass backs, well, the back doesn't pop off. What happens with that? You drop it and all that pressure that's going to push the back off now pushes through the back glass, maybe even the front glass because the phone is sealed. So they're less durable. They're significantly more expensive. You can't replace the battery as easily. I mean, I guess you technically still can. And they haven't really made any advancements in the phone. I mean, it's a Note, right? So here's our biggest issue. You got your phone, again, LG V60. You're writing probably like this. So if you're writing across the screen, just think about this. Look how narrow this is. 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio.
Right.
You know, do you really want to do this? Well, no, because you got that same problem. You don't have a lot of screen space top to bottom. So the Note, what it should be is maybe even a 4:3, maybe even like an iPad screen resolution, so that you're holding it in your hand and you can just write across the screen like normal. But
Dude, I've always
not the
said
case. They just
they
keep making them
should
taller
go
and thinner.
back. They should go back to the 1610 from the Note 1. It made the most sense. And especially now, if they had a bezel-less design of it, it would be no bigger than, you know, like a medium-sized iPhone, and have a 7-inch screen that's 2.5 inches wide rather than an 1.5 inch wide.
Yeah, so screen size, it just doesn't make sense. They've literally given us no incentive to buy the phone on screen size alone. But
It looks
wait,
like a remote control too. It looks awful.
not as bad as the Sonys. The Sonys are actual remote controls, the 21:9, like,
Yeah.
so
But I like the S20 design much better than this. Is an ugly phone to me. The really square with the round
people
glass
love
seems,
this bronze, man. I like so
I
if we
think
jump
they're
back
ugly.
here, I like the green. I do actually like the green a lot.
I don't.
Still kind of feminine. I'll give you that. It's still kind of feminine. But I like the green. That's probably the color I'd buy. The bronze, just it looks more like a rose gold, and people are ranting and raving. It's like, this is nothing special. Phones have looked like this for years. Just
Yeah. Dude, the S6 they
I don't know. I like the
actually
black
did,
though.
and remember the Note 6 they actually did in gold.
Yeah, I remember that.
The black
So
is okay. It's like the old iPhone color.
the black's not bad, but I mean, so many phones. Like the reason I have a white, and this has some rose gold trims around it. The reason I did the white LG is everything now is like every phone now is black
Yep.
or dark blue. You know, that OnePlus we showed you guys, that light blue, it looks awesome, but everything's like black or blue. There's hardly
Yeah.
any white anymore. Like there's no white Note. It's something that helps you stand out more.
I always thought they looked cool. I always loved them. All my notes were white.
And I'm usually the opposite. I like having a black phone. Just now, there's so many, and I go through so many phones. You know, doing the few reviews I do on YouTube, like just wanted something that wasn't black, and
Yeah.
it's hard to find nowadays for whatever reason, black or dark blue. So,
It's
um,
I the only way I would even consider one of these is because I'm close to my upgrade thing for my 2 years at work to get a new phone. Plus, obviously, you know, the new network and all that. But if they give me one of these, it might be good. But I would literally never buy one of these.
no, no, not for $1,000, especially.
No.
So let's talk about this Note 20 price. So if we got no selected right here, you know, $1,000 for the Note 20, even more for the Note 20 Ultra. This trade-in, it says from $499. That's a lot of money for a trade-in. So let's take a look at this. And full disclosure, Carrington and I already looked through some of these devices to try to see if it'd be a good deal. The S20s will give you $650. The Note 10 Plus will also give you $650. So will the Note 10. So Samsung's had some trade-in policies in the past that you can exploit pretty easily. This one, not so much. Can you drop down to $550, $400 for the S10e? It's like, maybe you can find some way to exploit. So let's take a look at this really quick. We mentioned eBay in our last video. I like using eBay for unlocked phones. Note 10, $454 refurbished. So you're saving $200, but that makes the Note 20 still $800, or the Note 20 Ultra still over $1,000. So let's go ahead and check out the what do we say, the Note 9 I think was $550. Let's see here. Yeah, Note 9 $550. And here we go, same thing. You know, you're saving about $200. There's not a whole lot that you're going to be able to save on this. And I know you can do Google and Apple here too, but Samsung and companies usually do this. Their own phones, they give priority as far as trade-in value.
Yeah.
So if we click on Apple just for kicks, outside of the 11 Pro and Pro Max, it drops to $550 real quick.
Yeah.
And then Google here, Pixel 4 and 4 XL, $800 phones, $400. So, I mean, even if we say, hey, you know what, you can exploit this, go on eBay, you save $200, still $799 and $1099 for the the Note 20. It's not worth it here in the States where you're getting the Snapdragon 865 Plus. Now, one of the things that we were looking at is, and this is for anybody that's in the UK, the 865 versus the Kirin 990 versus the Exynos 990. Now, take a look at this article. This is from December 29th, 2019. The Exynos 990 is what is going in the international version of the Note 20. It's a processor that is a year plus old, and it got dunked on by the Snapdragon 865. I mean, no joke, dunked on. So did the Kirin. You guys know we both like Huawei at this point. Kirin got dunked on as well, but the Exynos 990, Samsung is putting in a phone that's $1,300, and it gets dunked on. Dunked on, crapped on, however you want to go about that.
So they're completely generic specs, which is mind-boggling.
Now, this is on Android Authority. You can go on any website. You can look at any benchmarks. Benchmarks are tough. Make sure they're on Android. If they compare Apple, that's OS versus OS. That's not comparable. If it's on a Samsung phone, like there are a lot of comparisons between the S20 on the Snapdragon versus the Kirin. Same thing for the Note 10 Snapdragon versus Exynos. Sorry, not the Kirin. For the S20 and the Note 10, and it's not close. One of the bigger issues is the Exynos is awful on battery drain. If you guys remember, you watched my video comparing the S10 Lite, Note 10 Lite, and the A71, and I talked to Carrington about this extensively while I was testing all three. The Note was so bad, even though I wanted to like the Note. I did. Like we just mentioned, we both love the Note series, or at least we used to.
Right.
I was like, you know what, a Note, $500, cool, let's try it out. The battery was so bad. If for nothing else, I could not use the phone from the battery. The Exynos was stuttering as well, but I was going to deal with the stutter, but the battery and the screen on time was just too bad to put up with the phone. So Samsung's Exynos processors just do not age well. Snapdragons do. The Exynos does not, for whatever reason. So it's for Samsung to put that in a phone that's $1,400 is just mind-boggling to me. I don't get it.
Especially when they're not prorated for the difference. I mean, because you're talking a 30% difference in performance and in battery life between the same exact phone with the same exact price, just because you live in the UK or India or one of the countries that get the Exynos. To me, that seems like it somehow should be illegal. Like it almost seems like false advertising.
So here at the bottom, so this article does mention the Kirin, mentions Huawei. Like we said, we could both not Huawei fanboys, but we both like Huawei a lot. Kirin 990 just about to beat the Qualcomm chipsets for CPU performance, but lag behind the 855 and GPU. 855, not 65, not 65 right. Plus, 855. Keep in mind, this was a year ago when this article came out. So the Kirin versus the new 865s, it's going to fall behind them. But Huawei optimizes their phones really well. The battery life on the Mate 20X had a big screen, 5,000 milliamp hour battery, and it lasted me for 2 days. I know you got even better battery life than I did somehow.
Dude,
but
I'm pulling like 12
days.
hours screen on time every time I use my phone. It's amazing.
So yeah, 5.5, 6 hours is what most reviewers call a full day if you actually look at their battery statistics. So 2 full days between charges versus the Note on the Exynos, the Note 10 Lite was not close to that. The Note 20 is also going to ship with a very small battery, all things considered, which is just, again, kind of blows my mind. They're not shipping with a 5,000 plus milliamp hour battery, especially with the Exynos chipset.
What's even weirder about that is they knew how bad the battery life in the S20 and S20 Ultra were, and that had a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. So they knocked off 500 milliamp hours, I think.
Here you go. Battery. Note 20, 4,300. Yeah. Note 20 Ultra, 4,500. In the Note 20 Ultra, you got the optional, 120 hertz refresh rate.
And what's different about it, though, is it's not 120 hertz. It's dynamic. So like when you're doing reading, it's only refreshing like 1 to 10 hertz. So it's going to be weird. It's constantly going to be shifting, which I don't think makes sense. It's not a static 120 constant.
So, I mean, the overall point being, guys, people are going to freak the hell out over the Note 20.
Don't buy this phone.
Don't buy this phone. You saw, if you watch the Samsung video, the A71, S10 Lite, and the Note 20, I straight up said, or Note 10 Lite, sorry, I said, don't buy this phone. I could not justify a reason to buy it. I returned it within 2 weeks of using it, and ate a restocking fee, so I lost money. I mean, I didn't even sell it for close to what it was worth, just because it's a crappy phone. So,
well, and that's a good transition into, I've been considering getting a new phone. I have a Huawei Mate 20X, and I'm on AT&T for years, and there's been a lot of issues. I think they're kind of jacking with the Huawei phones, but it's, instead of looking at the Note 20, what doesn't make sense to me is they released on the same day this Tab S7 and S7 Plus, which have 5G LTE, the voice functionality. It has a 12-inch AMOLED screen with the S Pen in the identical specs as the Note 20 Ultra or Plus, but it's $500 cheaper for some reason with a 12-inch AMOLED screen. So that's where, again, with Samsung, none of their pricing makes any sense. None of these tech companies do at this point. It doesn't make any sense when I could just buy this, have it function as a tablet and a mini computer, and then also just use Bluetooth headphones and it'd be my regular phone.
So something Carrington and I talked about, and we've got slightly different takes, but it's essentially the same goal. I'm on a lot more social media platforms than Carrington is, which is one of the reasons he gets so much better battery life than I do.
True.
But with the Pixel 4a, it's a very small phone for me. 5.8-inch screen is a very small phone for me. I went from the Mate 20X to the LG V60, which by many people is not a small phone. It is for me. To now the Pixel 4a once it eventually comes in here in about another 10 days or so. And part of the reason for that, along with the privacy stuff, like I said, Graphene OS, using my social media apps as web apps, is trying to distance myself from my phone more. There's been lots of studies about how it's not healthy for you to be so tied to your phone. So I'm trying to discourage myself more from using those apps, but still be on them. Now, Carrington's not on those apps as much, but it's a similar concept. So whereas I'm trying to use a phone, more as a phone, whereas I got this, badass desktop that I can do pretty much anything I want to on. And Carrington doesn't have a badass desktop yet. Teaser for maybe a future video where we do a full build or build specs. Having a tablet that's a 12-inch, just kick-ass tablet and some Bluetooth headphones or something, that essentially gets him the same goal. We're both kind of disconnecting from our phones. Granted, he has to carry a phone for work. I don't. And then we have, these more powerful devices for everything else we want to do. So it's a similar mindset, but a different way of approaching it, which I thought was really interesting as we kind of talked about it the other day. Now, the specs on this Tab S7.
Because I mainly just do YouTube videos with mine. I really don't talk on it much. I don't text a whole lot. So it's just like,
that's a bigger thing.
Something else. Yeah, it just kind of, I don't know. It has literally the exact same specs. It's just confusing.
The big thing is I text a lot more than Carrington does. So me sitting there on a tablet typing on a screen, it's not going to fly. Whereas Carrington, I mean, primarily when he texts, it's probably me or his dad, because his girlfriend lives with him. So it's, it's not nearly as big of a deal for him as it is for me. So it's, it might sound weird to anybody else listening that doesn't know our situations, but it makes a lot of sense.
And one thing I have always loved about the Notes and why I am interested in the Tab S7 and going, as much as I don't really like Samsung anymore at this point, going back to this, is I always loved handwriting my text messages.
Yeah.
And this would be literally the ideal second gen from, I had the Note 12 Pro when that came out a couple years ago. That's about 6 or 7 at this point, probably. Loved that thing.
I think it was the 10.1, wasn't it? The 10.1.
I had that one, but remember I had the 12.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I used that every day, all day, like it was a TV and a phone and everything else, because I got the LT version of that as well. So, now it's like a bezel-less. I mean, it's a relatively small device to have a 12-inch screen. So rather than going to Surface Pro, this kind of suffices a couple needs. And there's no point. I already have a work cell phone. I carry 2 phones. So this would be just kind of a good, really good for Google Maps.
Well, if you can find so what I have, let me pull it up here really quick, completely different direction. I've got the new Amazon Fire HD10, which if you're clever with it, you can find this for $100, which is what I got mine for. They'll run sales all the time for $100 instead of $150. So if I need a YouTube device, this is it. I use this for basically, it's a glorified PDF reader right now for $100. I did not need a powerful tablet. I'll watch some YouTube. I'll read some PDFs. It's not a very powerful tablet, but it'll do those 2 things. All kinds of guides on YouTube if you want to get rid of the ads, and you want to load on the Play Store. So very different use case from what he's talking about versus using this every day. Now, since you've dug into this a lot more, the Tab S7 and the Tab S7 Plus have some very different specs, even though they're not very far apart in price, if you want to go into that.
Oh, it kind of reinforces the weird situation that we're in right now with tech just across the board, where there's been a flip-flop, and you and I saw this coming. As we said, phones and tablets would replace computers. You see now a laptop is a few $100 starting, and then I got a pretty beefy i7 one, a Dell touchscreen, pen function, everything. I think it was like $699. So for what they're doing here is trying to set and differentiate almost identical products, but they don't have any relative pricing space. You know what I mean? They're like $150 apart for drastically different hardware, when the relative cost of all of this, if you were looking at a non-marketing, just specs to components, this should in theory be what, 2.5 or 3 times more expensive than a Note 20 Ultra, given it has identical hardware, screen technology, refresh rate, etc. It's just a really weird position that these companies are taking. And Samsung and Apple are the worst at it, where, I mean, we just saw a $1,500 cell phone, and now they have 2 tablets that are drastically different, but only about $150 difference in price. It's more confusing, and it leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth when I look into this kind of. So I've kind of fallen off the tech bandwagon over the last 2 years, because just between Samsung, Apple, and then Huawei and the kind of China black eye, as far as tech, a lot of the cool innovations that we saw leading into like the Mate X and the folding phones just kind of got crushed. And now we're just left with these generic Samsung phones that are double the price they should be in all actuality.
Well, and sticking with, part of the reason you want to go with the Tab is you'll be able to do text still. So it's still Android. It's not as powerful as I pulled up here, Surface Pro. So $899
Right.
for the i5, with respectable RAM and storage.
Right.
It's not going to be as powerful. Granted, you don't get the keyboard with that configuration, but you'll be able to do text messages, which is, it's pretty huge. Versus, again,
And
less
calls.
powerful. Yeah, less powerful, but you can do calls and texts on the Tab S7 Plus. So with the AMOLED, and so the TFT display as well, which is kind of insane that Samsung would do that on a anyway.
I mean, it's because that regular one is still, I think, like $699 for a TFT display by the company that manufacture OLEDs. Like, it's just where I don't understand the mindset. And I guess Samsung's they're desperate right now. I think they're hurting, so they need to pinch every penny they can. But you see it really transparently, especially with Samsung. They're not very good at disguising, the awful folding phone they put out with the tiny baby screen on the front and terrible bubble and gaps. And, it's clear that they're caught in this position of trying to catch up with Huawei and Xiaomi and Apple, but have no real insight for how to do it themselves. Because apparently putting a stylus in a phone in 2011 was like the biggest thing they could ever come up with themselves. So it's just kind of ironic.
Well, and one last thing on that, on the note, if I can get back to it here. I don't know if you saw this or not. They switched the S Pen for the first time ever from the right side. It's not going to show us. From the right side, because if you're right-handed, you're putting the phone in your left hand, pull it out from the right side pretty easy, to the left side. So again, if you guys can see my camera here, if you're holding the phone like this, the left side is going to hit your palm. You hit the corner there of your palm. In a couple videos I watched, they've even complained about this. They're like, they want it to hit your palm, so it's something they can improve for next year. And that's something that we also see in the TV space. Like, they're intentionally degrading this technology so they can fix it next year, and it's a big selling point. Just doesn't make sense. I don't know. So transitioning to TV is talking about, manufacturers doing the bare minimum to try to sell stuff for next year. As you guys know from last video, I recently bought a TV, that big Sony in the background there. It's a 2019 H8G, I think is the model number. It's a Sony OLED. And one interesting thing is they use the LG OLED panel. But if you look up burn-in for OLEDs, which is the big concern, LG's burn in, but Sony's don't, despite using the same panel. So it's something weird that LG is doing with their tech. Now, if you're looking for a new TV, this guy is awesome. Quantum TV. His channel's not that big. He's got like 30,000 subscribers, but this guy, he does something similar to what I do on my YouTube channel, and that's I buy my own stuff, so I'm coming in unbiased with the review. He buys his own TVs, so he's coming in unbiased with his review because he's like, hey,
That's
I spent
crazy.
$1,000 on this, or whatever the case may be. Here's what I think of it for the money. And yeah, he'll get some hate from people still. He'll take shots at some bigger channels because they're getting the stuff for free. In his personal life, he is a professional TV calibrator, so he knows what he's talking about. And he really helped me make, he really helped me make my decision. Talks about Hisense TVs, some Vizio TVs. Takes a lot of shots at Samsung and LG. If you subscribe to his channel, you can see here he talks about some politics stuff too. Not necessarily good or bad, just his channel is not all tech all the time. Something to keep in mind. He had some stuff that said, proof Donald Trump's a racist, which I disagree with. Never watched the video. It's like, all right, man, it's your channel. Do whatever you want. I don't care. As you can see, I'm not subscribed to him, but I do give him $5 a month because if you do that, he also gives you his professional calibration settings for said TVs. So he actually has one of these Sony A8Gs. So I paid $5 a month to get his professional settings for him, and his content's pretty good. Now, in that same vein, talking about new TVs, something Carrington's been looking to a little bit is this Nano Cell TV technology versus OLED. Now, for whatever reason, Samsung makes the best OLED screens for phones. Apple uses them, so does Samsung, and so do some other companies, like Huawei, for example. But
Sharp used to,
but they don't do TVs. You've got LG, Sony, Vizio's coming out with one now. If you're overseas, Panasonic is untouchable. Like, I love their TVs. I just can't get one here in the US. I had a Panasonic Plasma for years. It's still running. So it's just kind of weird, but Nano Cell seems like one of the new technologies where they're trying to take LEDs and simulate or emulate OLEDs, because LEDs don't get the same burn-in effect. So Carrington, I'll let you take it away here with the new Nano Cell tech that's coming out.
Yeah, I actually just saw this the other day. Something popped up, and I can't remember if I read about it or if I saw a video on YouTube about it, but essentially the idea is an LED works with an overall backlight, usually just a bright white panel behind the actual layer of the LCD. And then it lights in kind of zones as the pixels change to give you bright spots or the sun versus the sky, the darkness or black sky. What this new nano LED the new methodology of it, the functionality of it, is essentially taking that one overall large light back panel and giving you, I think some of them have 100 or maybe 1,000 of these tiny backlights. So rather than, covering the whole panel with one, it inevitably gives you hot spots and dark spots and things.
Well,
The
so
idea is
I guess on that
to,
note, really quick to interject, for those of you that don't know, plasmas, their big thing was contrast, because blacks,
right,
they could literally turn off the pixel. So black was true black. If you're
right. They're
watching a
more
video
like
or whatever.
OLED in that vein.
OLED does the same thing. Yeah, that was the big selling point to OLED, is they could turn off pixels locally. So black would be literally black because the pixel is off. So the TV on that portion of the screen is literally
Right.
off, but delivers
And
some of the vibrance of LEDs.
that's what this is shooting to replicate. So the whole thing will be, and the way that OLED or plasma, just by the nature of the way they function, black is a true black because there's just nothing being displayed behind it. There's
Right.
no light at all. What these will do is a very similar effect. So it might, if you have a completely black sky and then some stars, it may just do an effect where it turns on 5 of these in different places to give you the whole lit sky, but the rest of the black is completely black. It's shut off. So they are essentially trying to replicate the way an OLED functions with an LCD or an LED panel. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's definitely, and I don't think it's OLED, but like you said, your TVs aren't as vibrant as the Samsung phones. I don't know if it's a calibration or a technology thing, because that's what I keep waiting on. As much as I don't like Samsung products at this point, their screens are fucking amazing.
It could be I get more. So one thing that you do, for those of you that have even messed with the TV settings just on your own, you can play with the brightness, same with the monitor. On a phone you can too, but it's more dynamic because you're going outside into the sun. So versus my TV is like, the sun's never going to be hitting my TV directly.
Right.
And the room, you can see that it's in, it's kind of bright. I've got curtains behind it that I can close if I'm watching a movie or something. So that's something I'm never worried about personally. Versus a phone, it has to be more dynamic, more punchy. And Samsung phones and even LG phones with their OLEDs, they're more punchy. They're less true to real life, but they're more punchy color-wise to try to give you that LED feel. Now, what Carrington was just talking about, this Nano Cell versus like a Samsung Quantum Dot. Well, let's back up a little bit. A traditional LED or LCD TV has lights around the rim of the TV. So instead of having a light behind the TV or multiple lights, there's lights around the rim of the TV. And that prevented you from getting that really deep black. If you had black, you couldn't just turn the light off or the pixels off because you had to project the rest of that side of the screen.
Right.
Quantum Dot has helped out a lot. My buddy's got a 75-inch Samsung Quantum Dot TV. It was like top of the line a year or two ago. It's like a $5,000 TV. It looks phenomenal. And looking at it, the viewing angles are great. The blacks are pretty damn close to pure black, but it's not quite as good as my Sony OLED. So you can actually turn that pixel off, but it still looks really good. Nano Cell is just kind of like seems like the next generation of that Quantum Dot technology, where they're trying to give you the best of both worlds, because a traditional LED is going to get brighter than an OLED. It just is. So if you can get
I don't think
brighter,
anything will touch OLED.
I don't die there.
I don't know.
It's the burn in. Like, so I mentioned, wanting to move to Florida, wanting to move there and having a TV outside. My indoor TV will be the Sony OLED, period. My outdoor TV will probably be an LED because you'll be outdoors and have the sun to worry about. So the brightness is more important than anything. Yeah, for inside, I agree with you. But I still see the allure of a Nano Cell or Quantum Dot LED TV. Like, I think they have a place in the market, is what I'm trying to say. They don't look bad either.
I don't discount that. No. There is something special about the way that an OLED screen self-illuminates, and you can really see it on the calibration and the way that Samsung's and even some of the LG phone screens used to look. If you cranked up the brightness to full, they almost have a neon, for lack of a better term, a neon glow to everything. And I just wish that was an option for all, for OLED TVs, is that you could turn on this mind fuck of, saturation and punchiness, even if it was just a setting that you could, like extra vivid mode or something. Yeah. Just as an option, because like even the tablets weren't as punchy, and that's why I'm curious to see the Tab S7 Plus OLED, like if it's got the same vibrancy as that would be a whole different game at 12 inches.
I'm sure it does, because Samsung screens are phenomenal, typically.
Yeah, got to give them that.
Jumping back to, again, Quantum TV, this guy, like, as much as somebody can be unbiased, he is. So if you're looking for a TV, definitely look up his channel to see if he has a video on that TV. The Hisense H9G, as you can see here, $699 for 55-inch. I think the 65 is like $899 or something like that. It's below $1,000. It's just insane for TV that size and quality. He loves the H9G, and he gives you a bunch of reasons why, which, if I were to move tomorrow and have an outdoor TV, it'd be the Hisense H9G. He still has a Sony A8G in his living room, which is what's in my living room, and he goes through the reasons why. But it's interesting because this guy, he doesn't hide his biases either. He thinks that OLED is, for the most part, overrated. He loves quantum dot, but he goes into the different reasons why he likes these different things and talks about specific situations. So it's his channel's awesome. Definitely check him out if you guys haven't heard of him before. I hadn't until I started really looking into a new TV because my plasma is dying. It's not dead yet, and I still have it, but it's dying. So, yeah, his stuff's good.
That makes all the difference, though. You know what I mean? Like him buying it and being honest, because how many channels that we even started out with being in the Android world that when they were buying their own phones were honest, and now they're just promo videos.
Well, not to name names, but MKBHD, Unbox Therapy, Flossie Carter. Not to name names, we don't want to disparage anybody.
Not at all, dude. We don't want to unbox therapy anybody.
No, it's If you watch these channels and you really pay attention, is it a review critically, or is it an advertisement? I'm not trying to puff myself up because I've got 1,000 subscribers, right? Like my channel's not very big, and I don't want to, I know I'm not the best reviewer out there. Like I've showed a couple of YouTube channels already on this podcast. Like there's people out there that are really good at what they do, and I'm not one of them, I don't think. But buying your own, you're a lot more objective. Like, hey, I paid money for this, so this sucks for $500. Like I'm really disappointed. Versus if somebody sends you the phone for free, you don't want to piss them off. Like, you can look back and look at channels who have got something sent to them for free, and they say something critical, and they stop getting devices from that manufacturer. It's just, it happens. It is what it is. It sucks. That's a big reason why I buy my phones and then sell them on Swappa or something a week or two later and eat the $50 or $100 because that's the only way you can do a fair review. Like nobody's going to send me anything at 1,000 subscribers anyway. But even at, if I had 1 million subscribers, LG is not going to want to send me anything. Now there's Samsung. Apple, of course, wouldn't. Google wouldn't. Like nobody's going to send me stuff because I'm going to be critical, super critical. So,
well, and that's the reason your channel will continue to grow and why it's resonated with people. You might not put, your first ones weren't like the most slick, polished videos, and they've gotten like really good now. They look pretty pro. It's not your full-time job. You do it as almost a favor to other people like me that always watch videos and stuff. And there is literally like a defining line. We've been friends for basically a decade, and there are a bunch of these guys that we used to actually watch for their review to see if it made sense to wait for a phone, spend $700 or $800 on it, and then you can almost go back through their catalog and see the sort of line in the sand where they went from objective and kind of fair, buying their own stuff, to when they've got some sort of sponsorship, and you can see the huge change. Flossie is like the biggest night and day. I remember it was like
Flossie, MKBHD before him. Yeah, just,
But do you remember around, I think it was around Christmas, I was still living in Cincinnati a few years back, maybe 5 years ago, but I remember we were like calling each other like, what in the world? This is like a promo. And he went from basically reviewing stuff and being upfront about it to like, it was straight up like, man, this Samsung phone, this like Note 6 is the coolest phone I've ever seen. Oh my God, dude. And it was like,
to be fair to Flossie, I think he still buys a lot of his stuff, but
could be.
But
Yeah.
he gets invited to a bunch of events now. He was featured in the Samsung S20 video of a review.
Yeah.
Like they had him,
That's
and
what I'm.
like, you know, like
That's what
even
I'm saying, man. Is
he's buying his own stuff, but he's getting a lot of additional perks. And I
well,
don't know the
look
guy
back through
personally. I'm
his.
not trying to talk crap about him or Marquez
Well,
Brownlee. Like anybody like that, it's just like, guys, you have to look at this video and be like, okay, this guy is not being objective. It's not
right.
hard to see if he's not calling out like a one specific issue. Like my videos are mostly, I try to keep them to 10, 15 minutes, sometimes even less than that if I can cover everything.
Sure.
And if there's something glaringly obvious that's bad about a device, I'm going to call it out within 5 minutes of the video.
Right.
And a
And
lot of these people
like,
aren't.
well, that's the thing. It's like I like Flossie. I think he's a cool dude, and I used to be a big fan of his. And I don't mind his videos, but there isn't a single negative video on this channel from like the last 2 years. Every single thing is the greatest, most cutting edge, coolest looking, most badass secure device.
Yeah.
There is.
Major go for everything.
Every single thing, where he used to buy some things and go, yeah, this phone looks cool, but it's a pile of shit. You know, or like when I watched like 5 minutes of the Samsung Note 20 review the other day, and it was literally a promo. Like I said, I thought he was gonna put it in his mouth and start sucking on it. Like it was just fucking ridiculous, and it's just cringy because I'm like, dude, no one's that excited over a cell phone. You're not 10 years old.
Well, and guys, the big thing again here is the Note 20 and Note 20 Ultra. I'm sure they're not bad phones. You just have
They're
to
the
also
same
consider the
phone.
money. You have to think about the money. When you think about, $1,000 to $1,500 pre-tax,
Right.
no. Versus here's
For
got a
a
Pixel 4a
phone.
real review. Real review. It's like
But
$350.
I
This
want to,
does everything that this does, just no pin. And
and I want
the
to
screen is
say,
so narrow, the pin is almost a afterthought.
for a phone. Like again, we were the biggest phone junkies there were, but we also always acknowledged it was a phone.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't do anything but be a phone unless you're one of these kids that play like fucking crazy games on a little, touch screen, which is awkward. It's a phone.
I think
And
it's a
that's
different
why.
generation, man. People do that. We don't get it, but they're super popular. I don't know why. They're popular.
And that's cool. And then, but there makes sense to be like the ROG phone or the Poco phone, like it has like
Right.
triggers and so like that. Or that design I came up with a couple years ago for the case that has like the hard joysticks and buttons built onto the outside. Like that makes sense to
The
me.
PlayStation sort of a thing, or a Nintendo
Yeah, and
Switch
you
sort
just
of a thing.
clipped your phone into it, and I have the design of it somewhere, but it's like that makes sense. But it's a phone, and it doesn't do anything different than the Note 8 did for $649 or $749. Like, there's nothing they've done to increase the actual value, and that's what's weird. And instead of calling that out and saying like this is identically the same phone as the Note 8 was, the Note 9 was, the Note 10 was, it's the same exact phone as the S20.
Well, dude, look at
You
this.
act
On
like
this,
state of the art.
look at my screen, for example. 1 week ago, OnePlus Nord, 100,000 views, 1.5 million subscribers. So that's like me getting 100 views on a video. I've only got 1,000.
Well, it's because a lot of his numbers are fake.
Sure.
That's the.
Well, no, I mean, so 100K, 150K for the Pixel,
right.
300K for the Samsung. It's been out 1 day.
Yeah.
Like it's just
dude,
certain things, man. Certain things.
He was featured on the launch video, dude, with Samsung.
Some of this is Samsung YouTube, like, promoting him, but no. And like we said, we like Flossie. We're not trying to call him out over anybody else. It's just it's something you got to look out for.
Principle. It's the principle
you have to be objective, and it's like, hey, Flossie says this is on a 1 to 10 major go, major. Like it's. He hasn't like crapped on anything that's above $300 that I know of ever. Granted, I unsubscribed a while ago. I got to scroll before you see Note 10 Lite. Here you go, 5 months ago, and that's a phone which I already told you guys was, and I got a video on my channel, was crap. It was a crappy phone, but still. So
his made it seem like it was the Mate 20 fucking folding phone. But I told
So
his review of it was like it was a legit badass device.
let's draw a comparison here. So I've got Angry Joe pulled up, but he's obviously
He's the best reviewer on the internet.
he's great. So this guy, Tech Tablets, 300K views, or subscribers, not small by any means. And I don't watch all his videos, but he's really objective. He lives in Spain, so he's looking at international phones, lots of Chinese phones. But he's pretty solid. Now jumping over to Angry Joe, he does a lot of Xiaomi. He'll do some Huawei. Doesn't do a lot of the mainstream phones because he buys all of his own devices. Exhibit A, you buy your own stuff. You're more objective. And you go to Angry Joe. So even when he does get stuff for free, even at 3.3 million subscribers, it's super objective. And he stayed true to that, and his channel's grown as a consequence. He's still making a ton of money, obviously. Ghost of Tsushima, which I know that you love. I haven't bought yet because I have a PS4, but
he gave it amazing game.
And you call it the most amazing game. He gave it a 9, not a 10. Yeah. He gave it a 9. And I don't think you disagree with that. It's like, okay, well, you're being very objective about this. Red Dead, I think he also gave a 9. Last of Us Part 1, he gave a 10. Part 2, I think he gave a 6, which I haven't played it. To me, seems too high, but he goes through why he gives it a 6. It's like,
and it's fair. I've watched even the long discussion, and it was their points are valid. He's like, the graphics, the gameplay, it's executed so well, that gives it some value. And I'm like, dude, for everything he always says, it's fair. Like, he was super hyped about Ghost, but he's like, there's bugs, I've had it freeze on me a bunch of times. There's a mission that is just impassable. It's a side mission that I just cannot, it'll just not load the next little portion. But I mean, it's like the greatest game I've ever played up with Red Dead. It's Red Dead with swords, and I totally respect I wait for most games other than Ghost and Red Dead. I wait to see if he puts a review out, what do you think of it? Because I know he's going to be honest, and he's probably saved me thousands in shit games that I was hyped for, and then he would play them and be like, this is fucking terrible, dude, don't get it. And it's like, thank you, man.
He's one of the few people I wait for his review, where like with phones and stuff like the Pixel 4a, I pre-ordered as soon as it was live because I know enough about the tech that's in it to know that for $350, this is going to be solid. This is what I want for $350. As far as the game goes, like Red Dead, any PC game, like I wait a week or two for him to put out a video. If it's a big game, he's going to put out a review on it. And he's not perfect. Nobody is. But I guess what we're trying to say here is, even though he's a big channel, just because you're a big channel doesn't mean that you're objective and a shill. Now, a $60 game is different than a $800 phone for sure, but he's very objective, and he'll get stuff for free. And companies have stopped sending him stuff for free, and he still buys it. Like, he still does the review. Like 814,000 views. With as big as his channel is, he made his $60 back and then some. Like, he's making plenty of money on this, which isn't bad. Just a sort of a, I don't know, thinking out loud thing.
And that's the thing, like, he's, he might not be your favorite kind of humor. Him and his buddies are goofy, or they do little skits and stuff. Some of it I think is funny, but the honesty and sort of integrity that comes through in all of his reviews, Flossie used to have that. And
he did.
That's what bugs me about having been a fan of his, because I've watched that happen to a couple other, that Rich from Review Tech guy. He's kind of and not as bad, but he used to be honest and objective and do reviews, and now he just kind of does weird, like, bullshit drama videos or something. It's a weird transition. So I don't know. That's why I wanted you to get into it, man, because the tech and your videos are good, and and if somebody sent you something, you would be objective about it.
Well, yeah, that I don't know how many people watched it, not that many, but I got sent that $40 microphone. It was $30 when they sent it to me, and now it's up to $40 on Amazon. And I put off the review for months because I was like, this thing sucks. And I don't want to review it because they're going to be pissed at me. But I still, they kept reaching out like, hey, do this review. So I did. And then I sent the link to them. And like, hey, sorry you didn't like it. And that was it. They haven't sent me anything since. Haven't offered to send me anything since. But it's like, guys, This is, I can't tell somebody it's $30. Sure, it's only $30. But if you're looking for something this cheap, you only have $30 to spend. And that's what's tough. Like looking
Well,
at it
and
through
that
that
goes,
lens, you know,
but it also
my
goes
old
back to
mic, to
that.
pull this into shot, my old mic, $50 Samsung Q2U. It's like just save an extra $20, you know, work one extra week, mow somebody's lawn one more
Right.
time, and buy, it's a way better mic. I just
Well,
no.
and that same thing is where it was a great reference to bring up Angry Joe, because you might go, and we even said like 800 versus 60, but the difference is you might only be buying one phone every 2 or 3 years, or there might be 5 or 10 games if you're, you know,
That's
you
fair.
have kids, or if they're young, you might be buying 10 or 15 games a year,
Yeah.
or thinking about it, and you might be spending 1,200-1,500 bucks on games, or buying a new console or something like that. And that's where the honesty part of it, and it's hard to find on YouTube at all. As soon as people get a following, it's
Well,
adios.
and as closing thoughts on this for now, Carrington and I have talked about this before. If you guys want to hear it, leave a comment down below. We can make a video going in, like really going in on a bunch of different channels. For example, let me pull up one right here. There's a guy. Who is that AirPod knockoff site?
Oh, that Maya and Jay, is that what it was? Remember the guy that
No.
does the reviews of like the clone stuff and was almost got kicked off YouTube?
So black pods are a known scam. Apple super copy reviews. This is
Oh yeah,
that
this
dude.
guy. This one, you called me that day, like, what the fuck?
So this guy, this website, he links to a website, right? And I could make a full video on this. It'd be a half an hour long. He links to a full website, and all that he talks about are AirPod knockoffs through a specific website. This should be your first sign, through a specific website. And let's click on one of these so we can get the website. This was rough. Like this was really rough. SafeLink, this has changed. Knock pods, that's different. That's different, man. That's different from the site that he used to send me to. So that means they must have got shut down.
I bet, for scamming.
Yeah. So anyway, he linked to a different website. You know, they accepted PayPal, went through how these fake sites will not accept PayPal, blah, 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 blah. And let's try
Right
to go to
there,
an old
dude.
video
Look,
to see.
look. You see the scroll back up. It said "scam exposed" on his old website. Right there.
Yeah, Apple, Everything Apple Pro, huge channel, obviously. And let's see. Fake AirPods.
This was a little scandal when it
This
happened a
is it,
couple
yeah.
months ago.
Podsbay. So
Yep, this is it.
podsbay.com, right? And here, let's check this out. Here's a really easy thing to check. So podsbay.com, i500 TWS earbuds. Let's go to AliExpress, which for those that don't know, this is like the one
Wholesale.
of the Chinese Amazons.
Well, and it's mainly for like business wholesale stuff. You can buy stuff on here like Alibaba for, and 1,000 at a time.
Yeah, there's literally businesses in the U.S. that buy stuff on here and resell. i500 TWS. It's not coming up now, but this video was not that long ago, huh?
No, it was what,
So,
January?
well, so here was the thing. So here they were like $70. That same model on AliExpress was like 20, 25. And if I do a video on this, I'll have some updated examples to show you guys some actual prices, but it was like 20, 25. And this a-hole, for lack of a better word, oh yeah, these sound the same, they work the same, blah, 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 blah. I bought into it. I bought them. I bought a pair of TWS i500s from him. And here you go, like our product, what it compares to, all this other bull crap. And they sucked. Like the pairing between them sucked. The mic and the mic quality sucked. The audio quality, they sounded like they were $20 earphones, but they were marked way the heck up here. Now, I ordered these back in December, I want to say. Maybe longer ago than that. I ordered them a long time ago. Now, a lot of stuff on his channel, it only goes back a year ago, right? So I ordered them a long time ago. And they were supposed to ship within a month and they didn't. And then, you know, January rolls around, COVID hits. And I reached out to the company asking why, like, what was going on? Like, hey, I ordered these a month ago. They still haven't shipped. What's going on? And the person that replied to me, their name was Alex, was just furious, talking about COVID and all this other crap and just like super pissed off at me, which seemed really odd. Like, I ordered something. You said it'd be here by a certain time and it wasn't. So I'm just asking where it is. I'm not being rude. Like, where's it at? And yeah, both these links are dead now. Ironic, right?
I bet they got shut down.
So I posted on this guy's, maybe I'll find the video where I posted a comment, and he started replying super angry, just
aggressive.
like super aggressive, super angry. Again, if I make an actual video on this, I'll have links and everything and show what he actually said. Just like, yeah, insane. And it's like, hey man, the gist of the post was like, hey man, this website that you recommended, here's what they're saying back to me, blah, blah, blah. And this a-hole took the side of all these websites. And again, the person from these websites that was emailing me, his name was Alex. So when I started replying to these comments on YouTube, calling this guy Alex, he got less aggressive. It's like, oh crap, I got found out.
Yeah.
I actually reported the channel, which I never do. I reported the channel because he only ever will link to a certain website. So if we click the newest one, so knockpods.com or something like that was the newest website he was linking to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of Pods Bay, he was linking to Pods Bay and then he just stopped. And
he probably just built another site.
He probably did. And if you can see the actual name of the pods. So like for instance, the i500 TWS, if you go to aliexpress.com and look that up, here you go, i500 TWS. They're like $25. They're charging you 60. $25 on AliExpress to wait an extra week for shipping.
Yeah.
They're making a killing. You could buy these. Like me and Carrington could buy these, set up a website on, you know, WordPress for $10 a month and sell these and make a killing. That's what this person is doing.
Well, dude, remember when that rapper bought those Chinese like Game Boy knockoffs and was selling them as like his own? Same kind of deal. There's a bunch of these. I keep thinking those Ray J earphones are the same scam.
Let's see if it's on eBay. So like I mentioned the last podcast, eBay is awesome for stuff from overseas. You find a lot of, that's a little bit of a markup, but it's not bad. Here you go. I-20, I-12. That's not what I want, but oh well. You get the idea.
I remember seeing them on there. They were like $26 or something.
They were less than $30. I remember that for sure. They were in the 20s, and just, you know. Anyway, you got to watch out for stuff on YouTube, and is what we're trying to get at.
We should do a whole segment on this next week.
We should, yeah. And we can call out specific people. Not even call out, just, you know, we know this podcast isn't going to be huge. For those of you that want to listen and want to know what we have to say, like give you, you know, channels to watch out for. It doesn't mean their content's bad. We called it NKBHD already. Like they go over a lot of good things, but there's a lot of stuff they skip.
Oh man, who was that channel that it had phone in it a couple years ago? Remember
Phone Dog.
Phone Dog, they were the worst shills.
Phone Dog, and then what's the random dude? TK Tech or something like that. You remember him?
Oh yeah, remember he changed
Tech
his
Reviews?
name, and yeah, that was
we called him out. Yeah,
too.
He started out calling out the 1+1 for the yellow screen issue, and then completely like flopped. And we called him out, and he started getting That's the other thing. If you go on my channel and call me out for something, I'm probably not gonna be pissed off because I've got nothing invested in the channel. Like, you call me out, it's my honest review on the phone. It's like, all right, man, you can disagree with me. That's fine. You're
not working an angle. That's the difference.
But when people get super defensive and pissed off, there's your sign.
Yeah.
And a last note on this, BadSeed Tech, I've been a subscriber since he was below 30,000 subs. He's up over 200,000 now. Dude is awesome. Dude gets a lot of free products. He'll reach out to Massdrop. He'll reach out to Logitech. He'll reach out to whoever. They'll send him stuff for free. He tells you at the beginning of the video, that's number one, He tells you at the beginning of the video, he got this sent to him for free. And he also says it doesn't affect his review at all. And with him, I truly think he does. And I can't get in his head, but he will recommend stuff still and not recommend stuff or make different recommendations. So he seems like he's legit. The thing that sucks is, for those of you that like my channel, talking about phones a lot, he talks, as you can see here on his channel, talks more keyboards and like PC stuff. So PC audio, keyboards, headphones, mice, much less about phones, more about like PC centric hardware. And you know, it's something that's, he's got his niche, you know. And he used to be a bouncer. He does a lot with audio. Like, great dude, seems like, and love his channel. Obviously, I'm subscribed to it. Don't watch everything, as you can see. You know, haven't watched before this video. Hadn't watched, you know, for a couple months.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a new keyboard or something like that, he's very objective, and I appreciate that about him. Even if he gets stuff for free, he's still objective. So even if he gets to up to 1 million or 2 million subs, which I hope he does, because I like him a lot, he deserves it, in my opinion. He's one of the guys that seems like he's going to stay objective and just doesn't really care what you think about him. So it goes a long way for me.
Yeah.
Transitioning back to phones. Google already discontinued the Pixel 4 and 4 XL. This is as of August 6th, 2 days ago from the time we're recording, which is August 8th. This really just means, hey, the Pixel 4a they're going to push, and the Pixel 5 is probably a month away. The Pixel 4 did not sell very well. I don't have any data to pull up for you guys for that, but the Pixel 4 and 4 XL, the battery was terrible. So to my knowledge, they did not sell very well, so I get Google discontinuing it. I think they should, I mean, Carrington, tell me if you disagree. I think they should go back to Nexus. They should go back to phones that are less than $600 that give you most of a flagship experience. You know, it used to be everything except the camera. If you want to focus on the camera now, give me everything except the processor, and give me an IPS screen instead of OLED. You know, like that's the Pixel screens look great. The 4A, 3A, they look good. So.
No, I agree. I think that they should go back to partnering with companies to make the Nexus off of essentially flagships the way that they used to, and just coming essentially loaded with AOSP or whatever the new version of Android is. I don't really understand why, other than they were trying to launch their own phone network a couple years ago with that overlapping MVNO that was like Straight Talk. Yeah, so that didn't go anywhere. So other than that little experiment, their phones aren't good. I mean, they have decent camera software and stuff, which they could literally just upload onto.
For the money,
like
let's clarify that. For the money, they're not good. Same thing was said about the Note. For $800, they're not good.
No, I mean, but they used to be pretty good. I mean, the hard thing is, I was never that much of a Nexus fan, because even with that, what you were doing was taking a lot of the bells and whistles that were the software enhancements that the companies would do and just remove those. So you got the same, say like S6 at the time as Samsung put out, with the same great camera module, but just awful camera software. So maybe if they could take the things they've learned with the camera side from the Pixels and go back to just integrating that into a base AOSP with a partnered cell phone, maybe they could do it cheaper, better hardware, and then they wouldn't be stuck with these fucking stupid designs, which that's a lot of the reason people don't buy them. Like,
so what you mentioned with their old Nexuses, that was back when TouchWiz used to actually give you stuff over the competition. Right. And, you know, we were ROMing like crazy, rooting and ROMing. For those of you who don't know, you load on custom software to your phone. Back in the day, it was a lot easier to do than it is now. TouchWiz actually had a bunch of features that the stock Nexus phones did not. Right. Versus now, it's one UI, it's TouchWiz. There's not really an advantage it gives you. It's just a different way to do things. Right. So they also used to be a lot cheaper. Now you're paying a premium to get less features, whether or not you like OnePlus, which is mostly a stock skin, or LG, or Samsung, which I don't, and Carrington doesn't either, Huawei. Like, I love Xiaomi skin, but it's very heavy. and they're cheaper than the Pixel. So I'd be paying more for a Pixel versus a Xiaomi to get less features. Just
Right.
why?
Well, that was always my problem, even with the Nexuses specifically, because remember they did that one that was with Huawei, and it was like a Mate
the
7 or
Pixel, the
Mate 8.
Nexus 6P.
Yeah, and it was a decent phone, but it was like versus the Huawei one, it was shit, and it was like I think it was more expensive,
It's
or
like 600
right
bucks.
around right around the same price as the actual Huawei, which had a much better fingerprint reader and had a much better or software version, because they used the hardware of the Huawei, but it had a much better kind of calibrated screen on it using their software, and the camera was just night and day. So it's the same thing even with that Nexus S6. It was, you were paying about the same money, but you weren't getting any of the features that Samsung were baking in at the time. So I don't really get the Pixel. Like, if they would, I get they're trying to be the Android version of the iPhone, but they're doing everything kind of half-assed like Google does.
Well, so I've got I told you when I worked at, I won't say the company name, but when I got out of college,
Right.
Pixel 2 had just come out. And a guy I worked with bought a Pixel 2 just for the immediate software updates. He prioritized that over everything else, whereas you and I are on the same wavelength of you don't update right away, ever. And maybe you also don't want the new update. You know, it'll make, maybe you're more vulnerable or some BS like that, but you might not want the new update, and updates coming right away. Even if they come right away, like on the iPhone, you don't want to update right away because they break a lot of stuff, especially with the new, like iOS 11 to 12 or 12 to 13, 13 to 14. So, you know, like the big number updates, a lot of stuff breaks, and you want to wait a month or two, usually before updating there, to not run into bugs.
Like on Android, the reality is, as a Nexus user and as a Pixel user, you are a beta tester.
Yeah.
They work out all the kinks, and then they send that over to the OEMs for their skin to be put on. And
that's fair.
I never understood the point. Like, we would always talk about, for years, I would build a ROM, and then I would flash that ROM, and that would be the software. I never would update it. You couldn't even ping the software update at the time to try it. And if there was one that came out that actually had some structural improvement to the firmware, then we'd go back in, retool the new firmware with the, you know, the ROM build, and then flash that on there. And even now on my Huawei, I have automatic updates shut off. You know, I never just leave it run. So like, I don't know the last time I upgraded. I think there was a little bit of a bug in mine during an intermediate period right at the first of this year. I upgraded it one more time, and I think there's been 2 cents that I'm like, it's running good now. 12-hour, 13-hour battery life.
If you don't have a reason to update, you don't update typically. No. I mean, that's my thought process.
Well, because look at my Windows computer, dude. Every time I wake up and it's done an upgrade, something different is fucked up on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just how it is.
That's not to not rip on Microsoft. It's not unique to Windows or Apple or Google. It's just, it's how it is. If you want we talked about this too. If you want the Nexus, OnePlus is the new Nexus. The cameras aren't quite on par with all the other like main OEMs, but everything else is solid. Even the Nord especially. The Nord for $550 for 6 and 128 RAM 2 storage.
I would agree with that.
You can't beat that. The camera's good enough, and you can't. It's a better Nexus. You get the updates almost as quick. You get some extra software features. I mean, I know you've never used the OnePlus, but dude, their software is so fast. As far as like speed goes, it's OnePlus and then Xiaomi and then the Pixel. Huawei's smooth. We talked about that. Huawei is smooth as hell. But if you're talking about like that, like the snappy quickness, OnePlus and then Xiaomi, despite Xiaomi's heavy skin, is really impressive to me. So
no, I mean, and that's been a running theme, and kind of ties into what we first started talking about at the beginning of the podcast, was just all of the true innovation in software, even on the Android front, was always out of China. It was always like Vivo. I remember I went to buy a Vivo phone because they were the first phone that was 6.5 inches, like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Remember that? I even forget the model of it. But
the Vivo Nex.
No, it was before that. It was the one I tried to order off eBay, and then the guy didn't actually have it and
No, I
tried
don't
to
remember the name.
charge me. I can't remember the name either, but it looked just like the Galaxy Note 4, but it was a 6.5-inch phone, almost identical body. That Samsung basically copied that design almost Q for Q, like 18 months later. But dude, all the cool shit's coming out of China, and that's what I'm like, man, that would be a bummer if we do cut off all ties. Like, I'd like to bring most
You can still
business
import
and,
it. Yeah, you can still import it, buy it on eBay overseas. Like you'll be able to get it still, but
well, no, I mean the actual advancements. Like I'd like to see a lot of manufacturing and business come back here, but I don't want to hurt the speed of advancements and evolution we're gonna have if we start
well,
fragmenting everything. It's gonna be a little weird.
so transition to our last thing that we have for this podcast. Motorola, Lenovo bought most of Motorola, so Chinese company to an extent. But
Totally.
yeah, the Motorola One. So as you guys can see here, we talked about this a little bit, I think, last podcast, maybe not. Maybe Carrington and I talked about it after. 350 to 450. So let's click on this cheapest one for 350 because we talked about the Pixel and how great that is for $350, right? This essentially has the same specs. 21:9, so the screen's gonna be taller and less wide, which Carrington and I don't like. But if you're like a female or something like that and your hands are smaller, maybe you like that more because it'll be easier for you to hold the phone with one hand. Full HD, FHD plus, which for Motorola means 1080p. I believe this has a Snapdragon 730. Let's see. I don't know how to jump to the specs on here. I probably should have checked that out. I believe it's a Snapdragon 730, same as the Pixel. The camera software is not going to be as good as the Pixel, but the camera sensor itself will be better, probably, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Because Google's been cheaping out on it for a while. So here we go, view all specs.
That's what Mr. Who's the Boss said, that the sensor itself on the Pixel sucks, but the software is amazing.
Yeah, I remember watching that. So yeah, a little bit bigger screen than the Pixel, but again, it's more narrow, so take that for what you will.
That's a half-inch. That's nothing to scoff at.
No, but I mean, it being more narrow, 21:9 versus 19:9 or 19.5:9, it's probably going to feel similar, even though it's bigger, you know.
That's what she said.
Yeah. This is weird. Samsung Exynos. So yeah, let's skip past that. This phone. Don't buy this phone.
Do not buy that. That, especially that model Exynos, is awful.
Update. Do not buy the Motorola One Action.
Oh no, dude, I did not see. Why would they go with that of all? I'd rather have a Helios X90.
Let's see. The One Fusion Plus. This is the one I think I actually text you about. Like, look at this. $400. You get a pop-up camera. Bezel-less display, pop-up camera. This looks like one of the Xiaomi phones from a year ago as far as the camera setup. Like, almost identical. Pretty much identical.
It probably is.
Sorry, Chewy's trying to play with me and dropping his toy on the ground.
Dude, you know what I'm thinking? That's probably what Lenovo has done. They've probably white labeled, because there is a phone from Xiaomi last year or Vivo that look identical to this.
Well, so here we go. So Android 10 ships with Snapdragon 730, only 4 gigs of RAM instead of 6, but 128 gigs of storage. Okay. Fingerprint reader. Cool. 5,000 milliamp hour battery, 15-watt charging, so not as fast as the Pixel, but it's going to be faster than an iPhone if you're switching over. This is over 2 days of battery life, which for me and you is probably realistic. 12-hour screen on time is what I'd expect to get.
Dude, my phone has a 5,000 milliamp hour. It's 7.1-inch AMOLED.
That's what I'm saying. For our use, it's probably going to be 12+ hour screen on time.
That's nuts, dude.
1080p screen, 6.5 inches, 9.5:9, so it's going to be a little bigger than the other one that we just looked at. That was 6.3. The aspect ratio alone. TFT LCD, but it's IPS, so screen should be fine.
For the money, it's great.
And then you can, I mean, this stuff's not that important. The sensor looks like it's pretty solid. And what you want to do if you're actually interested in this phone, if you really care about the camera, look up the actual sensor. This is something you can Google and see who the sensor is made by. If it's made by Sony, it's probably solid. If it's made by Samsung, it's probably decent. If it's made by anybody else, except for Leica,
Yeah.
But like, look at this. You know, you get like almost bezel-less, and the camera on the front
That's
pops out.
crazy.
It's
Dude, you would be insane to buy a Pixel over this phone other than for graphene. Like,
I agree. Graphene and
I,
carrier, because with my, like I mentioned, with my my work pays for my phone now, so I have to use Verizon. These
oh yeah.
phones are only GSM, T-Mobile AT&T.
Ah,
So
okay.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't have a choice. But here you go.
Yeah.
Like there you go. Like bezel-less almost for $400,
Wow.
man.
That's insane. And a Note is 1400.
The cheap one is $999. Well, let's go with $999 for the cheap one. Like it's
So 1,000.
there's no reason to buy a Note. There's not. If you're on Verizon, buy a Pixel 4A. If you're not and you want a bigger screen, buy one of these for $399. Buy it outright. The nice thing is, so people like to finance their phones now. If you do buy now, you can pay through, usually they'll do financing themselves, or you can pay through PayPal, which will let you finance the phone.
Oh,
So
cool.
you get a little less RAM. That's the big knock against the Pixel, but everything else about the phone is better. I mean,
It's
like, you know,
so much
better.
better looking, but it just looks so much better.
Dude, 45-watt charging capable? What?
That's insane.
Lower end processor in this one, though. 675, which is still 675, guys,
Bad.
is solid. Like, the
Especially
675 is
game.
seriously solid. If you game, then no, it's not great. It'll be fine, but not great. If you don't
Well,
game,
when
which
we
I
say
don't,
game, when we mean
heavy,
like,
game heavy.
yeah,
Yeah.
the like Call of Duty or whatever it is on there, not
Call of
like
Duty, PUBG, not like a
Angry Birds.
Mario. Yeah, Mario, Angry
Yeah.
Birds, you know,
My
emulator.
watch used to run Angry Birds,
Yeah.
literally.
So, man, that makes all these other like expensive phones a hard sell, because we're only looking at, to be fair, guys, we're looking at Motorola. We're not looking at Huawei or Xiaomi
Dude,
or OnePlus or Oppo. We're looking at companies that will sell you a phone in the United States. You don't have to go to eBay, like I just mentioned in the last video. You buy it from Motorola directly if you want to, and it might
dude,
make it
this
the carriers.
is the Vivo Next. It's the next first gen from like
From
two
like
years ago.
yeah.
It's the
It might have been longer, 3 years ago maybe, but yeah.
but this is the identical body and build and everything.
I would be very happy with this phone
That is beautiful.
for $400, dude. Buy it outright. It'll run for a couple years. Very happy with it. Pictures will be good enough. And I'll probably, to be honest, I'll probably keep the 4A for a while. I don't think I'm going to sell it. I think I'm going to keep it.
Yeah.
So no, it's just, yeah. And that's a whole other video, man. We could do an entire hour-long video on how phones have changed and why they're so overpriced. But
We should next
Android
time.
Central or Android Authority has a video on Motorola Skin and how good it is and how nobody gives them credit. Motorola Skin is mostly stock. So if you guys like stock
Yeah.
Android,
It always
Motorola
has
Skin.
been. Remember, it always has been.
It has, but with these phones, you're not paying for it. If you go to their higher end phones, so the Motorola Edge, for example, let's jump to
Yeah.
that. These you're not paying for the skin so much, but you're
Whoa.
paying a lot of fucking money.
Dude, I haven't even seen these. These are fucking beautiful. They're
They are.
completely
They are.
bezel-less.
So here you go, $500, the Motorola Edge, 5G. Let's see what the specs are on this one. They look good. I just
Only
Carrington,
$499?
Carrington, I don't know about you. I hate the curved screen. I hate it.
Oh yeah, I don't like it either. But I'm saying, like, if you compare $499 to $999 for the Note
So for
20,
$499, Snapdragon 765, 6 gigs of RAM, 256 storage. So specs are good for the money.
yeah,
To be fair, for $500,
fuck
the
yeah.
765, this puts it on par with the OnePlus Nord, but more storage space and more RAM, or same RAM, more storage. Just I don't like the curved screen. I don't think you do either. I hate it.
No, I don't like the curved edges. It's one of the biggest turnoffs with Samsung, and
A
that's
lot of
why I
people
hate my
do though.
work phone. It's annoying to me, but
The Edge Plus for Verizon only $1,000. Like, yeah, they can go
I
F themselves for $1,000.
what is this? What kind of specs we looking at?
865 or 865 plus, I believe. Let's scroll down and find out.
All right, that's okay. That's like That's not bad then, considering it's cheaper than the Samsung of the
865,
same.
865, 12 gigs of RAM, and 256 storage of UFS 3.0, so it's going to be quick.
12 gig. Dude, this is more spec'd up
5,000
than
milliamp hour
the...
battery, 6.7 display. So for
It's
the
better
money,
specs than the Note.
for the money, it's not bad. I'm just not going to
Right.
buy it. You wouldn't
No,
either, I
no.
don't think. But if somebody
No,
wants to
no,
consider
no.
it,
Because it's just that Lenovo bezel-less phone from last year with Motorola's
yep.
body on it, or label.
For those that don't know, Lenovo now owns Motorola because we keep referencing them.
Yeah.
So, no, not bad. I mean, there's no reason to buy it for that. I mean, in real life, like real world use, the 865 versus the 765, you're not going to notice a difference. I mean, unless if you game, you probably will. But if you don't game, if you're just a normal consumer, you're not going to notice. So save yourself $600.
Yeah, your stupid thumbs are going to move just as fast on one keyboard as the other. So.
Right. So.
That's nuts, man.
Motorola's stepping it up, man. I'd love to buy one, but the Pixel 4a is coming in, so I have no reason to buy one.
No, but I mean, it could be a good review. I could see that being a popular phone, actually, for the money.
I may buy one just for that and then send it back. We'll see.
Yeah.
Because I've got that Mint Mobile SIM card now, in addition to my Verizon one. So for those that missed the last podcast, plan is to do one of these every week, mostly tech, dabble in some cars or politics, whatever else is going on. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. Leave a comment below on what you want to see for the next episode, or send one of us a tweet or something like that, and we'll try to incorporate it in.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks for chatting, man. And I'll talk to you before then, but we'll do this again in about a week.
All right, buddy. We'll see you guys next time.
Cool. See ya.